I'm Amber McCrae, a nutritional therapist. I help women become more in tune with their mind, body, and soul through holistic nutrition and emotionally focused therapy. I help them create a more meaningful, energetic, and connecting life. Hey there, amazing souls. Welcome to another episode of Connection Over Perfection. Today, we're diving deep into the world of holistic health and transformative practices. And let me tell you, we've got an incredible guest lined up. Get ready to meet Raelyn Hamman, a powerhouse who wears multiple hats, who's a nurse practitioner, health coach, and clinical hypnotherapist. Raelyn's dedication to empowering healthcare workers and her deep grasp of the mind-body connection will shed light on the incredible power of holistic approaches, particularly the magic of hypnotherapy. She embraces the transformative potential of rewiring thoughts, stories, and core beliefs and guides individuals to break free from limiting patterns, aligns with their goals, and cultivate healthier habits for profound life changes. Her passion for educating and supporting fellow healthcare workers in embracing diverse healing methods is genuinely inspiring. Our paths crossed at a trauma conference, The Body Keeps the Score. From there, we just clicked, and now we're on this exciting journey of educating and empowering others together. So folks, without further ado, let's buckle up and explore Raelyn's journey, her growth, her expertise, and her unwavering commitment to revolutionizing healthcare. Raelyn, welcome. I'm so thrilled to have you.
Thank you, Amber. What a sweet intro. I adore you, and I could not be more happy to be here. So excited to talk today.
Awesome. So we're going to dive right into it. I want to know about the hypnotherapy part. So how does hypnotherapy support individuals in becoming more attuned or connected to themselves on a deeper level? You know, allowing them to really tap into that inner wisdom and create those transformative shifts in their lives that we're all looking for.
Yes. Okay. I love this question. So hypno really deals directly with the subconscious mind. So I want to discuss this to help answer this question. And it's really the subconscious mind is my passion. I think it's the most magical thing that we can utilize. I really like to get deeper into this. Okay, so our subconscious mind is where deep wisdom resides. I personally view it as our connection to and ability to utilize the power of the universe, source, infinite intelligence, God, whatever you want to call it. It's where we connect to soul and intuition. So our beliefs, habitual thinking, and emotions create our realities. But all of this automated stuff comes from what is stored in our subconscious mind. So it holds basically everything we've been through and have experienced. We spend the first 7 years of our lives creating the vast majority of our core beliefs. These are created by observing our families, community, and culture. These beliefs are based on survival and protection at that age. And so unfortunately, they tend to be largely negative and disempowering. So we create more beliefs and habitual behaviors throughout our lives, but the big chunk of it cemented into our way of being comes from childhood and the reasoning we had as a child. So it's estimated that we spend 95% of our day living out our core beliefs from our subconscious minds, which is crazy. So we use about 5% of our conscious mind throughout the day, if you really think about that. So the magic that hypnotherapy offers is that once you access the subconscious mind through hypnotherapy or other similar tools and remove these outdated core beliefs, you can replace them with what's more aligned with your desires for your life now, allowing you to make these transformative shifts. So also, I just want to say behaviors can become automated when your subconscious mind has a hold of it. So it can be used for incredible things or it can go unchallenged. And we live out the rest of our lives never realizing our potential. And that's what I want to say so much here is I want to clearly state this, that so many people think, oh, I'm just the way that I am and that can't be changed. But no, you are programmed that way or conditioned to think and feel a certain way, mostly because of what you absorbed from the world around you. So like I said before, if our beliefs, habitual thinking, and emotions create our realities, and all of this is automated from our subconscious mind, then accessing this space regularly is so powerful in changing your life and connecting to the power of your inner wisdom. That's kind of the basis of it. There's so much more. And actually, just because I don't know if we'll fully get back to the subconscious mind, but a couple of like the writers and books that completely opened my mind is The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy, and then Anything by Neville Goddard, who's back in like early mid 1950s, but he's incredible. So just if anybody's gets into the subconscious mind, I wanted to say those couple things because those are still writers and books that I am just obsessed with. So put that out there.
I'm definitely adding those to my list because I have not read those. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I hear you saying that one of the reasons that you're so passionate about hypnotherapy is because it is definitely connected to the subconscious mind. And that is so important because there's so many things that happen, especially in our childhood, that our body has potentially blocked us from in order to try to keep us safe.
Yes.
So it has caused a block
Mm-hmm.
to where the root of the issues aren't being healed or processed through, and they just become blocks. And this is why a lot of people can't move forward, or they feel stuck, or like you're saying that this is just the way that I am. They may say that because it feels like no matter what they do on a conscious level, they can't seem to work through these things. And are you saying that because some of those things are on the subconscious mind, correct? And by tapping into that, you're able to kind of unlock things and get to the root cause and help people move through. Is that close?
You said that perfectly. Yes. Because I mean, if you think about it, you can ask somebody, oh, so what's happened in your life that makes you act this way? It's like, there's so much. Like, how do you really get to the root of it? So yes, hypnotherapy is one way where basically you relax enough to access these deeper brain waves so that your conscious mind kind of steps aside, and then you're basically working with your subconscious mind. And through scripts and talking, certain things can be brought up that, maybe you never thought of before, or a lot of different things. But yes, the idea is that a lot of these core beliefs live subconsciously. So we can't easily access them of like, there's some stuff where we're like, oh yeah, my mom always told me this. That's why I'm this way. But there's a lot of other things that we store there that we don't completely understand. And exactly, hypnotherapy can help us relax enough where our kind of busy conscious mind can just step aside, and we're able to be guided into, an exploration of kind of what's there. And so there is like suggestive hypnotherapy where you just have something you want to go in and work on. But for mine, it's like intuitive based. So they always say like your intuition knows what needs to be healed. So I love that. It's like we can go in with hey, this is what I want to work on. This is what I'd like to replace it with. But sometimes we get down there and these certain things come up, and it's never wrong. It's like certain things that need to be healed first. So it's really like your own inner wisdom, inner guide takes us along this journey. So it's a really beautiful, like, just exploration of kind of just our inner worlds. You can call it our subconscious mind or whatever, but it's this connection to something much bigger than we are. So it's very cool.
I love that. I just love your brain. I love talking to you. So along with that, I hear so often from so many of the people that I work with and just encounter that they have a very hard time remembering their childhood, and they feel stuck in that. They feel like maybe they can't move forward or get through things. Is that something that you've experienced in your line of work?
Definitely. I have had clients, yes, who have said, they're it's not always trauma. It just depends. I mean, trauma can be many different things, right? What level of trauma was.
Right.
But yes, that can be very typical, especially with trauma and certain emotional abuse, maybe, or different types of households or how people were raised, of like, hey, I just don't remember, certain things. So usually in those sessions, it's not always that I now just remember my childhood. They may get little scenes, but a lot of it is like feelings, we all know our emotions and feelings. And that is a big part of hypnotherapy because those are tied to our core beliefs. So sometimes too, it's like we go and they're not necessarily accessing all their memories or scenes, but it's a lot of like, what are the base of feelings that they had when they were a kid, and can kind of pull from that.
That's
Mhm.
huge. So that just sparked a question.
Yeah.
Does that correlate? Because I know that when I'm working with a lot of people, one of my goals is to help them reconnect to themselves.
Yeah.
And so, in that, when you're talking about that, is that feeling is so many people who, especially people who have gone through very traumatic things,
Hmm.
have been so disconnected from self that they can't even feel what's in their
Hmm.
body. And so when you're talking about going back and not necessarily even just exploring exactly what happened, but how their body feels it,
Hmm.
is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it can be absolutely like a physical feeling. A lot of it is emotions, you know. So it during hypnotherapy, people absolutely can get a lot of physical sensations. That is actually something we kind of let people know, like, hey, you may feel your body temperature drop, or you may feel certain emotions, but a lot of it is tied to emotions. So we say, yeah, something significant happened. And maybe when we do the hypnotherapy session, your subconscious mind is going to protect you from maybe visually seeing what happened, but it's going to kind of give you some of the emotions that you experienced. And that's what then can like kind of ignite this other conversation of allowing to feel that and to heal it, let it go, and then replace that with what, you know, what we do want to feel. Because like you said, we're kept safe, right? So as children, we experience things, and then we can't rationalize things at that age always, certain things, so then we store it in our bodies a lot of times, and you know, and then that can come up as emotions or physical sensations or disease later in life, or all these different things. So yeah, hypnotherapy is an incredible way to like access those kind of like muddy things that we can't totally figure out, like what is this feeling from, or yeah, what are these physical things from, but then we can go and kind of put a place to it and be able to heal it. But my point is that we don't always have to fully go back in and like experience the trauma and able to heal it. So we can be protected in that way when we go back, if it's not something like, you know, we're able to, you'll get a sense of what it is, but you don't always need to like fully experience it to be, you know, to be able to heal it.
That's huge. That was going to lead to my next question because I know so many of the listeners are probably like, well, I don't know if I really want to relive that, and it can be really scary, and maybe some misconceptions about hypnotherapy and feeling safe
Mm-hmm.
in doing that. What would you say to people about that?
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's why, so I mentioned like this is an intuition focused therapy, the way that I do it. And so we're never going to suggest, okay, now go here and see this. Like your own, we call it like, you know, your inner wise one or your inner guide is guiding you. And it, right, if it's you, part of you knows you better than anything. So it's only going to allow you to experience what is safe for you to experience. And you'll, you know, it's like a lot of people have the idea that you're just completely like zonked out. You know, you are present, like your higher self, you're very present. And we're talking throughout the session. So it's not like I'm just kind of guiding you endlessly into the abyss, and then you're just, you know, having these scary things. Your own subconscious mind guides you. And it will also not allow you to divulge information maybe during the session to me that you wouldn't want to consciously share. So it really is very protective. And I mean, real quick, I had one of my own experiences of a past life regression that was very deeply meaningful to me, and it was incredible, but it was a traumatic event, and I got the sense of it all. I understood what happened, but it wasn't the feeling of like reliving it. It was just like I understood, but then right after following that was so much like healing and love and understanding and like just getting certain things that was just profound. So that's more of the way I like to see it. It's a beautiful experience and not something to be afraid of, because really you have your own self-protective guide within you that is leading it.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
that. So that kind of leads me into my next question. With all the hats that you wear as a nurse practitioner, an integrative health coach, and a clinical hypnotherapist, how have you witnessed the transformative power of rewiring those thoughts and stories and core beliefs for people through the work that you do in helping individuals, break those patterns and align with their current goals?
Yes. So, I mean, this question, I feel like I could answer a few different ways, but it makes me think of like the compound effect, because it's really the small, seemingly insignificant choices and changes you make every day that make a radical change with time. So, like the rewiring of thoughts and stories. So we begin to gain more awareness, and let's say so we begin to change those thoughts and the stories we tell ourselves through different tools such as hypnotherapy or emotionally focused therapy or journaling or meditating, or like there's so many different ways we can get there, right? Then we get to recreate who we want to be. I always say, like, big picture, it's like a death and rebirth process. We slowly let go of our old selves and way of being, and we let that die. And we dream and envision who we want to be, what kind of life we want. And then we slowly but surely make the changes every day. And one day you wake up and realize, you shifted your reality. So, when we have our subconscious mind working for us, these changes can become more effortless, right? So, we're not like every day, of course, we're putting in work in ways, but a lot of it is like what I say, like with journaling, we're setting intentions, we're so like I love to say this right before we fall asleep is one of like when our brain waves are slowing down is like when we're so suggestible. So it's like thinking of your future reality, then all these little things that we do day in and day out, it helps where our subconscious mind is just taking that constantly, and that's when things become automated and habitual. So for me, one of the hardest parts in the beginning of just like kind of being on this journey was patience, because once you really start to believe in the power that you can change, you want to like jump into that future reality so badly. So patience is a very important thing, because it's really about the journey getting there and who you become along the way. So it's becoming the person who can live that dream life you envision, and sometimes we need to grow in ways first. So yes, overall, like working with clients, it's those subtle but powerful shifts that happen consistently over time, that like 6 years or 6 years, 6 months or a year from now into your journey, you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I have changed so much, or I feel so differently about this. So it's really like those subtle little things. It's not always, these significant changes. Sometimes big things happen, but it's really about like trusting that process too. So it's about having a practice and allowing time and trusting the working of your subconscious mind to kind of help people, yeah, really shift their reality. But I think sometimes I always just reiterate that it's more subtle at time, in the big picture than people realize. Like you think, oh, these big just jumps, but it's more of the looking back that really you're like, oh my goodness, like I've come this far, or whoa, I had this intention for all these little things, and like I'm actually living that now. So that's, yeah, I feel like how I see it most play out in people's, experiences, and in my own, of course, too.
I would definitely agree in my own experience as
Mhm.
well. And I think that that's so huge that you touched on that, especially for our listeners, because I think in this day and age, it's like that all or nothing, and we want that instant gratification. And I'm all about baby steps. So I think I hear what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that in all of the work that you do, it's this consistent small steps. And with
Mhm.
each intentional movement forward, or even having to pause and go back and go forward again, is that the magic happens in those small moments. It's not these huge, big goals
Yeah.
that you crush in a day. It's this, like you said, the compound effect of
Mhm.
making the next best choice, as my friend Sheila says. And I love that. It's just always making the next best decision for your life. And then when you stop and you turn around, you're like, I've made so many amazing baby steps that now I can see the big effect. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And it's just making me think now, it's like we can get so set on those outward goals of like, okay, this dream job or the home I want to live in or the friends I want to have or all these things that are outward. But that's why, like I mentioned, that it's like it really is about who we become along the way. That's the most beautiful part of it all. And I think we can get stuck on, like, of course the goals are exciting, right? That drives us in life so much. But I think it's like, yeah, these small little things along the way that are really like the beautiful thing. But absolutely. And that can be, that's why I mentioned patience again, because that's what kind of drove me crazy in the beginning of like really wanting to make significant changes in my life. I'm like, I want it all now. But that it's just so much more beautiful when you look back and you're like, wow, okay, it all happened the way it was supposed to for all the good reasons. And yeah.
That's a huge thing. And I know a lot of the listeners, and including myself, patience is really tough, especially when you have lived 40 years a certain way
Hmm.
and you are now becoming conscious, whatever, aware, wanting that
Hmm.
shift and wanting it so bad and it feeling so far away. And especially when I was coaching women working out and stuff like that, everybody, I would always say, start with 5 minutes, start with 5 minutes of working out. And they're like,
Hmm.
Amber, what the fuck is 5 minutes of working out going to get me? And I'm like, listen, trust the process, because it's about a life change. I know that you could lose 20 pounds in a week
Hmm.
if you wanted to. That's not the goal here, because we're going to crash and burn. The
Hmm.
goal is to make it a lifestyle change, and we have to make it repeatable, something that we can do every day, repeatable, to make it consistent and being able to work that.
Totally.
And if we do too much too fast, we're just going to stop doing it.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. I mean, it's so true. Absolutely. And it's so like it's almost like cliche now, like, oh, it's lifestyle changes, but it's true. It's you changing as a person and what kind of habits does that future self have and how can you slowly start to bring them in? And that's what I mean when you look back over like years of your life, if you've been trying to make changes, you're like, okay, I get it because you slowly start. I
Right,
remember like years ago,
exactly.
mine was like, don't make fun of me, but it was like floss. Like, so, those were habits I was trying to create, like simple, silly things. But then with time, they all build up, and you're like, you really are embodying and being that person that you were like, oh, I'd love to be like that someday. It's those little
Exactly.
tiny things that you're building up over time, like the 5 minutes. It's like, well, what is that doing? It's creating a habit. That's what it's doing. Like, and I say the same thing to my clients, like about meditating and journaling. I'm like, just please try for 3 to 5 minutes because with time, this is going to be like a practice that supports so many aspects of your life that
Yeah.
so but right, starting with just a few minutes. And I don't know why earlier when you were talking it brought up, I wanted to mention like I don't know if people are familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza. So it's like we're in this place now in our lives, but that's where like meditating or creating this kind of space in the unknown, they say, where it's allowing that future self to develop. And my little sister and I always say, it's happening now. So, like, if you can also get and access that excitement of like the life you do envision or what you want or whatever those goals are, is to like not be frustrated of being in this current reality, but being like it's happening now, like it's already happened. Or but the fun of kind of a way to bridging that gap of where we are now to where we want to be. But a lot of it is, yeah, mental.
That's a huge aspect, and kind of like manifesting, right? It's you're omitting that frequency,
Yeah, absolutely.
and what you think about, what you bring about, and what you put out, you're going to receive back. And so if we're always in this lack mindset, then we're just going to continue to receive lack. And it's kind of like fake it till you make it type thing,
Mhm.
which I think that there is something in that. And as far as like the frequency,
Totally. Yeah, no, I love that.
and I think that this is, I want to stay here for a minute for the listeners, because I think that in anything that we do on our healing journey and anything we really do in life, is that these baby steps and really taking the time and understanding and giving ourselves permission to go at a slower pace and to not get so upset that we aren't where we want to be. And like you said, that we are creating that, we are making that happen.
Mhm.
What else does anything else come up to help your clients in this aspect, this area? Because as a coach, I've done so much extensive research on this.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, basically, it was the baby steps and celebrating our wins and getting that teeny bit of dopamine hit
Mm-hmm.
that we need to keep going. And this
Mm-hmm.
is why I tell people set micro goals. Like for 5 minutes, I am such a timer whore
Yeah,
because it's like a mini win. I'm like, I worked on this for 15 minutes. High five. Hell yeah, I did this. And I celebrate that. I get that dopamine hit. I'm feeling good. And then I want to do another 15 minutes.
totally.
Versus when we have that shame, we set it, we're like, we have to finish this whole complete task before we can get that reward for ourselves. And it's too far. We don't ever get it. And then there's guilt and shame all wrapped up into that.
No, totally. So what's coming to mind when you're talking about this, that I feel like a lot of this is, yeah, what I see with clients, but especially with myself, of what I've totally experienced, is like this beautiful dance between like envisioning the future, living in that future, but then coming back to gratitude. I mean, I know it's such a thing, like being grateful for every little thing right now and not obsessing that it's not what you want in the future, all these things. Or it's so powerful. And I think that it's like a spiritual practice or whatever. I've heard it like on podcasts, but it has resonated and really been so impactful in my life, is that we can't always feel something in the future that we can't access right now. So it's kind of like tricking your brain. It's like, if I can be blissful right now, I'm going to create more bliss. If I can be, all of these things like love. And so a lot of those emotions can come from being grateful and having like a gratitude practice and deep diving on right now, what is everything good? Or let's say you're fighting with your husband and you want to like, shift, and you of course in your mind you like loop and obsess about everything you're annoyed with and this and that. But it's like, what if we can really pull back to like, what are the little things right now I'm so grateful about us and our relationship, or all of that? That is the power of what can help transform that into what you do want. So being careful what we focus on, but also like being grateful for what is right now, and not, being too ahead of ourselves. And it's like maybe a little off topic of what you were talking about, but
No,
that's what
that's huge.
coming to mind so much, that is just so powerful, is, we can access these states of being right now, and a lot of it comes through being like deeply grateful. So like I've done like some of those like 30-day gratitude practices, and I always say, I'm like, I try to journal a little bit every morning, but when you're really intentional about being grateful, I mean, crazy things start happening in your life, like little things, because like attracts like. I mean, that is the universe we live in.
Exactly.
And so I think, it's the dance of like knowing you want more in your life. What are your goals? What are all these little things you still want to do? But then we always come back to like, okay, but right now there's so much that's good to focus on. I think that is super important.
I would definitely agree with that. And do you think that this ties into it, is that when you trick your brain, our brain is like a computer. And so when you input negative thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
your system in your brain files through and pulls out all the negative thoughts. It's like, okay, yeah, we're going to think negative. Here's this and this and this that are all negative.
Mm-hmm.
When you input the positive, your brain spits out, hey, this is the positive stuff. I'm going to pull all of this up, because our energy and our chemistry literally changes for what our body is inputting and exputting,
Mm-hmm.
as far as like those dopamine hits or cortisol if we trigger that fight or flight in thoughts.
Totally.
And so it's not all woo woo. It's actually like scientific that it
Absolutely.
changes the chemistry of our body,
Yes.
along with then omitting that frequency of what our body is putting out, which is again what we're going to attract and receive back.
Absolutely. Yes. There's so many different ways to explain it. Exactly. It's exactly what you just said. And was it, I can't remember the way he explains it, but like, what is it? Bruce Lipton, did he write The Biology of Belief? Like he explains it all scientifically, and all of that. And my husband will ask me something. He's like, well, how this? And I'm like, it's just magic. That's how, like, because it is, but yes, it has its like scientific explanation, which I love and is so true. And I always go back to like the subconscious mind, because that's kind of how I think and work. But it's like, it is our servant. So if we say, if we look in the mirror, so I work also with like weight loss and body stuff and self-love. And I think it's like, if we look in the mirror and we're like, ugh, I'm fat, your subconscious mind is like, oh, okay, you're fat, so I'm going to keep making you fat. Like that. I mean, and not that being fat is bad, by the way. I love to say this. It's all about the way we feel about ourselves, because I want someone to look in the mirror and be like, I freaking love you. Like, like that is a good feeling. And so it goes back to all of, yes, the like attracts like, but it's all, chemistry, and it totally is very real stuff. And I always say, if you can't like look in the mirror and you don't like something, like stop looking in the mirror today then, or just look at something you do like. Or when I was in my health coaching course, a woman was giving a speech about this type of stuff. And she was talking about a woman with MS who was like progressing to the end of her life. And she would realize she had never loved herself. And she was like, I have to work on this. So the only thing she could find was her eyelashes. So she like obsessed in the mirror about her eyelashes. And then slowly but surely she found other things she loved about herself. And then she went into remission and like travels the world talking about how important self-love is. Like there are stories like that. And so it's like, it's having some discipline around our thoughts and understanding that it does work this way, and that you will get out of it what you put in. So it's important, and more love will come back when we can see the things that we do love. And that goes back to gratitude and all those things and what we focus on. And it's like, we just think we are that way, or we supposed to be gross or unlovable. And it's not. It's a mental game that we can play and understand. And it's so powerful.
I definitely agree with that. And that brings up my next question. Kind of to wrap all this around, on this podcast, we talk about, everything holistic approaches and practices and nutrition, emotionally focused therapy, herbalism, spiritual practices. Mm-hmm. We've talked about so much. As a nurse practitioner and a health coach and a hypnotherapist, what are the main modalities that you use that you would suggest to somebody who's starting their journey?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think there's so many that are good. I think they all complement each other in amazing ways. I do think it can be a very personal decision, right? Like I like to throw out a lot of different things and be like, what stands out to you? Like what feels right, But I think there's a lot of big things. Like, so for example, like I'm speaking from personal experience here, like a whole foods diet and like a holistic approach to nutrition significantly affects my mental health. Like I genuinely feel a change in my mental health. So when I know my mental health like helps create my reality, I am directly affecting my life in such a significant way by the way that I eat. And also like how much more my intuition is like stronger when it's not kind of muddied up with like a bunch of crap or sugar or stuff that I know it just does not work well. I still eat certain things, of course. I love like the holistic nutrition approach. So, nutrition is definitely important. Like the emotionally focused therapy as well. It just helps bring in so much needed awareness to our emotions and how to deal with life in a healthy way. Emotions are so powerful in our lives. There's so many different people I like to reference, but Joe Dispenza says this like so well. He says, when adults try to change, we act like addicts because we're addicted to our current chemical state of being. So like all the thoughts constantly running through our minds every day, they produce emotions, and we memorize these emotions and they're attached to these thoughts. So good or bad, our bodies are addicted to that chemical state that they create. So these are automated responses, just like breathing and our heart beating. And these are called conditioned responses, when our body responds automatically. So this is when you can feel kind of out of control in your health or stuck in a loop and not being able to get out of that. So just the emotional stuff, it's so important to just understand what's going on. And then spiritual practices, I always say, don't get me started on that. It's like my favorite thing about life. I think opening up more spiritually has been so rewarding in being human, because being human can be hard. And we need to, I think, connect to that deeper source that we all have. And just like taking a spiritual perspective on life has really saved me at times when I was going through like deep depression. The idea that we're just a soul having a human experience and that this is not our home is like so relieving to me. Like, let's just experience all that being human has to offer, the good, the bad, all of it. And then we get to go home. Like, how awesome is that? So there's those are some of the big things: emotions, getting to know yourself, nutrition, yeah, spiritual practices, like just diving into your own little inner world. Like it's where our power is. I think it's where, so much of the beauty is. I think the world can be so dark at times in so many different ways, but it's like we have the ability to tune that out. And this inside is what is real. And we get to create our realities from that. So it's so powerful. It's so beautiful. But yeah, there's so many different ways to go about that. And there's many more, tools, modalities that work. But I do think they all most of them get at the core of connecting with yourself and living a clean, healthy life that's aligned with you and that makes you feel good. And that's going to be a little different for everybody. And that's what I love. It's like what works for you. It's not going to be what everybody tells you. So I think that's super important.
I love that. Find what works for you. That's so important, especially on this healing journey.
Yeah.
And I think that that goes back into that baby steps and really learning to connect to yourself and finding what works and what doesn't work. And on this journey for me, I don't know about the same for you, but it's trying a lot of things and finding what doesn't work for me. And then what does work for me falls into place.
Totally. I think it's just so important, especially too, as we coach or help guide other people. It's like, here are some suggestions. These are things that have worked for me or for other people. But a big part of this journey is about you tuning in to find what works for you. I think that that is like a tool all of us have to continue to strengthen yeah, shutting out the world and exactly finding what works, yeah, for you.
I love that you said that because I think that's one of my biggest passions is having so many different people on this podcast and meeting and working and collaborating with people is that we're kind of all in the same field, but there's
Mhm.
so many different people that there's room for everybody and we can all learn from each other. And I love that meeting other people who feel the same way. And what I say might resonate with somebody else and what you say might resonate with somebody else. And so this is why we're all in this together. We're not working against each other, we're working together.
Completely.
So, Raelyn, your enthusiasm for helping healthcare professionals explore these alternative modalities is very inspiring. So, can you tell us a bit more about your aims in educating them about these approaches and how it can enhance their personal well being and also for the people that they care for?
Yeah, I'm a healthcare worker. I'm a nurse practitioner. So it's funny, we always model so much after our own lives and what we've been through. But when you start to see it so much in other people, it just, yeah, it makes you want to help. I have so much more work to do. Of course, it's endless, but I feel like I've gotten to the other side of a lot of what I've been through. And healthcare workers are just so close to my heart in all of this because the typical nurse, let's say, is often a caretaker and very, potentially struggles with like codependency and basically a lot about giving. And nursing and healthcare can be a very emotionally demanding job. And I think that I just see it so often is that we don't really take care of ourselves and create these practices and practice putting ourselves truly first. And instead, we go out all day for a 12-hour shift and come home so drained. We want to eat our emotions. We are exhausted. We maybe aren't interacting with our families the best. There's another way, but we have to really take care of ourselves and put ourselves first and really work on a lot of these emotional things. Again, this is like the typical is what I'm saying, going off of like what I've been through. And so not every healthcare provider struggles with this, but it is, a lot of healthcare providers are overweight or talk about emotional eating or, when I bring up some of these things, let's say in a facility I'm rounding about, most of the nurses there are like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's me. Like, so it's just a common thing. So that's where I'm passionate about getting out, speaking in, the healthcare settings and giving kind of a guide and tools for people to, to feel good in work and to be able to do what they do, but not be so drained by it and it affect their life where then they're the ones ending up in the hospital bed because they've stored all of these emotions and haven't taken care of themselves and all of that. So that's why I'm so passionate about it. I just think there's a better way, but it's a difficult field field to work in, and it's very emotionally demanding. And I just think there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of support, like through COVID and everything. Like I go into these facilities, I'm like, so what kind of mental health support did you get? And really there's not a lot at all. And so it's the mental, emotional, spiritual support that I think they that's lacking. So that's definitely a passion of mine, especially starting locally, just getting into the healthcare setting and really giving talks, putting on workshops, doing coaching.
That's huge. First of all, I just want to thank you because I think that the work that you're doing is amazing and definitely shifting the frequency in this universe. I think I hear you saying that one of the biggest reasons that you're passionate about this is your own personal experience and the weight and heaviness of what you've experienced, and then being on the other side of that and knowing that there is hope and there are things that you can do to get to the other side, and the feeling, and you want to share that with other people who were in the same position as you. And back to that compound effect, if you can help them learn how to heal themselves and reconnect to themselves and feel better, then in turn that will trickle down to the people that they're caring for, and then so on and so forth. Is that close?
100%. Yes. I mean, I think, yeah, we have the ability with all the people that are passionate like me about this kind of stuff. We can transform healthcare. That's like my big dream. It's so true. I mean, it is. We all affect each other. And yes, when we are in a place that we're working on ourselves and doing all these things, it absolutely affects those around us and affects our patients. And it is big stuff that can really be very impactful. So, yeah, absolutely.
Raelyn, you're amazing. Again, I say this with almost every person that's on my podcast, but I could sit and talk to you for hours. This is probably why I have you on my podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your energy with us, your expertise, and just your knowledge. You guys, Raelyn's information will be in the description below if you want to work with her further or check out all of her stuff. Thank you, Raelyn, so much. And thank you for the work that you're doing for the healthcare system. If you've heard me talk, we definitely need a huge shift in that. And you are a fighting advocate for that. So thank you very much.
I so appreciate it, Amber. Thank you for having me on. I'm so grateful that we met. And I just want to say real quick how we met. It's like we said hi outside on the street walking into the trauma conference. And then I sat somewhere else, and like she came over and was like, "Do you want to come sit by me?" And like we just hit it off. And that really impacted me because I'll think that so much more often now, where it's like we all have these little connections and we all are just keeping ourselves hidden from each other. And it's like that's what life's really about, is like connecting, sharing the love. And it's like, look at this like relationship and friendship we've had just because you were like, hey, come sit by me. And I love it. And I'm so grateful for you and for, people like you, and doing this podcast. And I love it. And I'm so grateful. Today's been fun.
Connection over perfection. I was like, you know what is the worst
Yeah.
that she's gonna say to me? You're crazy. I'm like, I already know that I'm crazy, but if the worst she could say is no, you know what I mean? I'm like, fuck, perfect, I'm gonna go ask her. And I'm so glad
And it inspired me. Yes, I love it. It was the best.
Thank you again. I look forward to talking to you guys in the next episode, and remember, connection over perfection. The content provided in this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The intention of the host and guests is to spread love and awareness. Always seek the advice of your physician or trusted healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard in this podcast.